The morning sun cast long shadows across the manicured gardens of Windsor Castle as Catherine, Princess of Wales, carefully reviewed the guest list for the upcoming charity gala. Her fingers traced down the elegant paper, checking each name with the precision that had become her trademark since joining the royal family. This event meant everything to her. A chance to raise funds for children's mental health, a cause close to her heart. In her private office, Kate had spent weeks planning every detail. The flowers would be white roses mixed with seasonal blooms from the castle gardens. The menu featured dishes from local suppliers, supporting small businesses across the kingdom. She had personally contacted each major donor, using her warm charm to secure substantial contributions. This gala would be her biggest solo project since becoming Princess of Wales, and she was determined to make it perfect. Meanwhile, 3 floors above in the Queen Consort's private apartments, Camilla sat at her antique mahogany desk, reading the same guest list with very different eyes. Her lips pressed into a thin line as she noticed several names that made her uncomfortable. These were people who had been notably absent from her own events, yet here they were, eagerly accepting Kate's invitation. Camilla had been Queen Consort for 2 years now, but she still felt the weight of public opinion pressing against her. Every poll showed Kate as the most popular royal, beloved by the people in ways that Camilla knew she would never be. The younger woman's natural grace and genuine warmth had won hearts that Camilla had spent decades trying to reach. It wasn't jealousy exactly. Camilla was too practical for such emotions, but it was a growing concern about influence and power within the family. The Queen Consort picked up her phone and dialed her private secretary. "Margaret, I need you to review the protocol for next week's gala. I believe there may be some issues we need to address." Her voice was calm and measured, betraying nothing of the thoughts racing through her mind. She had learned long ago that in palace politics, the first move was often the most important. That afternoon, Kate received an unexpected visitor. Lady Margaret Thornfield, one of Camilla's most trusted advisors, appeared at her office door with an apologetic smile. "Your Royal Highness, I'm terribly sorry to disturb you, but we've discovered some complications with the guest list for your gala." Kate looked up from her plans, confused. "What sort of complications?" "Well, it appears several of the invited guests have security concerns that weren't properly vetted. We'll need to review the entire list through the proper channels." Lady Margaret's tone was respectful but firm. The Queen Consort is naturally concerned about any potential risks. Kate felt a cold weight settle in her stomach. Security reviews could take weeks, and the gala was only 10 days away. "But we've already sent the invitations. The menu is planned. The flowers are ordered. Surely there must be a way to expedite the process." "I'm afraid royal protocol is quite strict about these matters, Your Royal Highness. The Queen Consort's office will need to approve any changes personally." Lady Margaret's smile never wavered, but her message was clear. As the afternoon wore on, Kate found herself facing one obstacle after another. The caterer called to say there were concerns about the menu that needed royal approval. The florist received instructions to hold the order until further notice. Even the charity representatives were contacted and asked to provide additional documentation about their financial records. By evening, Kate sat in her private sitting room, staring at the pile of complications that had appeared out of nowhere. She wasn't naive. She understood palace politics well enough to recognize a coordinated effort when she saw one. But the boldness of it surprised her. Camilla was essentially dismantling her entire event piece by piece, all under the guise of proper protocol and security concerns. William found her there when he returned from his day of royal duties. His wife sat surrounded by papers, her usually bright demeanor replaced by quiet frustration. "What's happened?" he asked, settling beside her on the sofa. Kate explained the day's events, watching as William's expression grew darker with each detail. She had seen him angry before, but this was different. This was the controlled fury of a future king who had watched his family's dynamics too closely for too long. "She's testing us," William said finally, his voice quiet but filled with steel. "She wants to see how far she can push before we push back." "But why now?" Why this event? Kate asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. William was quiet for a long moment, considering his words carefully. Because it's yours. Because when people see you succeed, they remember why they fell in love with our family in the first place. And that's something not everyone wants to encourage. That night, as Kate lay in bed staring at the ceiling, she thought about the delicate balance that held the royal family together. She had always tried to support Camilla publicly, understanding the difficult position the older woman held. But this felt different. This felt like a declaration of war, disguised as royal protocol. She thought about all the children who would benefit from the Gala's success, about the months of planning that were now in jeopardy. Most of all, she thought about the message being sent, that her influence within the family had grown too large for some people's comfort. The next morning would bring new challenges, but for now, Kate simply lay in the darkness, understanding that her role in the royal family was about to change forever. The gloves were coming off, and she would need to decide whether to retreat gracefully or stand her ground. The choice she made would echo through the palace walls for years to come. Dawn broke gray and misty over Kensington Palace as Kate made her decision. She would not back down. The charity gala meant too much to too many people, and she refused to let palace politics destroy months of careful work. But she knew she needed allies, and she knew exactly who to call first. Her phone rang 3 times before a familiar voice answered. "Catherine, darling, you're up early." Princess Anne's voice carried that no-nonsense tone that had made her the most respected working royal for decades. "And I need your advice," Kate said without preamble. "And possibly your help." 20 minutes later, Princess Anne sat in Kate's private office, listening with growing interest as the younger woman explained the situation. And had lived through decades of royal family politics, had watched marriages crumble and reputations rise and fall. She understood power dynamics better than almost anyone alive. "So Camilla is flexing her muscles," and said when Kate finished. "Interesting timing. The king is away in Scotland for another week, which means she's essentially acting without oversight. I don't want to create a family crisis," Kate said carefully. "But I also can't let her destroy this event. Too many people are counting on it," and studied the younger woman with sharp eyes. Kate had changed in the years since marrying William. The shy girl who had once seemed overwhelmed by royal protocol had grown into a confident woman who understood her own worth. What does William say? He's furious, but he's also concerned about the bigger picture. This could escalate quickly if we're not careful. William is right to be concerned, and agreed. But he's also right that you can't let this stand. If you back down now, you'll spend the rest of your time as Princess of Wales fighting the same battles over and over again. The two women spent the next hour developing a strategy and would make some discreet phone calls to key figures in the palace establishment. Kate would document every obstruction, creating an official record of the interference. Most importantly, they would work together to find alternative solutions that bypassed Camilla's office entirely. While Kate, Anne planned their response, Camilla was hosting her own meeting across town. In her elegant morning room at Clarence House, she sat with 3 of her most trusted advisors, reviewing reports about the previous day's interventions. "The security review will take at least 2 weeks," reported Sir Geoffrey Matthews, her private secretary. "And the catering approval process could take even longer if we find additional concerns." Camilla nodded approvingly. She had nothing personal against Kate. In fact, she rather liked the young woman. But the dynamics within the royal family were shifting in ways that concerned her. Kate's popularity was becoming a problem, not because Camilla was jealous, but because it highlighted her own struggles with public acceptance. Every successful Kate event reminded the world of what they had loved about Diana. Every time Kate smiled or laughed or showed genuine emotion, people remembered why they had fallen in love with the royal family decades ago. And by contrast, it made Camilla's more formal, traditional approach seem cold and outdated. "What about the press?" asked Lady Victoria Pemberton, Camilla's communications advisor. "They're already asking questions about the delays." "Let them ask," Camilla replied calmly. We're simply ensuring proper protocol is followed. No one can fault us for being thorough about security and procedures. But even as she spoke, Camilla knew the situation was more delicate than she was letting on. She had spent years building her reputation as a steady, reliable presence beside the king. She couldn't afford to look petty or vindictive, especially not in a conflict with someone as beloved as Kate. Back at Kensington Palace, Kate's phone was ringing constantly. Word had somehow leaked about the delays, and journalists were calling for comments. Charity representatives were expressing concern about the uncertainty. Most worryingly, several major donors were beginning to ask questions about whether they should make alternative plans for their contributions. "Your Royal Highness," Kate's private secretary announced, "the Duke of Cambridge is on line too." William's voice was tight with controlled anger when Kate picked up. "I've just had a very interesting conversation with Camilla's office. Apparently, they're now questioning the venue choice as well. Something about crowd control concerns." Kate felt her heart sink. The venue was the one element she couldn't easily change. They had booked the Grand Ballroom at Buckingham Palace itself, a choice that had taken months of coordination and planning. "They can't be serious." "I'm afraid they are. They're suggesting we move it to a smaller, more manageable location." Kate closed her eyes, feeling the walls closing in. A smaller venue would mean fewer guests, fewer donations, and ultimately less impact for the charities involved. It would also send a clear message about her reduced status within the family hierarchy. "We need to escalate this," Kate said finally. "I hate to do it, but we may need to contact your father directly." There was silence on the other end of the line. Both of them knew that involving the king would turn a family disagreement into a formal palace crisis. It would force Charles to choose sides between his wife and his son's wife, a position none of them wanted to put him in. "Not yet," William said finally. "Let me try something else first." That afternoon, William made an unexpected visit to Clarence's house. He didn't make an appointment, a deliberate breach of protocol that sent its own message. When he arrived, Camilla was hosting a garden party for local charity representatives, a carefully orchestrated event designed to showcase her own charitable work. The conversation between William and Camilla took place in her private study, away from the garden party guests. Both kept their voices low and their expressions neutral, but the tension between them was palpable. "I think there's been a misunderstanding about Catherine's gala," William said, his tone carefully controlled. "Perhaps we could find a way to resolve the various concerns that have been raised." Camilla studied her stepson carefully. She had watched him grow from a grieving boy into a confident man, and she understood the steel beneath his diplomatic words. "Of course, William. We all want the event to succeed. Security and protocol are simply important considerations." "Naturally," William agreed. "But I'm sure you understand that Catherine has invested a great deal of time and effort in this project. The charities involved are counting on her, and the public is watching how we handle it." The subtext was clear. Any failure of Kate's gala would reflect poorly on the entire family, but especially on whoever was seen as responsible for its problems. Camilla was being given a chance to step back gracefully before the situation escalated further. "I'm sure we can find a solution that addresses everyone's concerns," Camilla said finally. "Perhaps Catherine and I should meet directly to discuss the details." William nodded, but his expression remained watchful. "I think I'll be very helpful. Catherine is available at your convenience." As William left Clarence's house, both he and Camilla understood that the first round of their conflict had ended in a draw. But neither was ready to declare victory or defeat. The real test would come in the direct confrontation between the two women, a meeting that would determine not just the fate of one charity gala, but the future balance of power within the royal family itself. That evening, Kate received a formal invitation to afternoon tea at Clarence's house. The invitation was beautifully written on cream paper with Camilla's personal seal. To any outside observer, it would look like a friendly gesture between family members. But Kate understood it for what it was, a summons to negotiate the terms of surrender or declare all-out war. The afternoon sun filtered through the tall windows of Clarence's house as Kate walked through the familiar corridors toward Camilla's private sitting room. She had dressed carefully for this meeting, a navy blue dress that conveyed seriousness while remaining respectful, her grandmother's pearl earrings for confidence, and her wedding ring prominently displayed as a reminder of her position in the family. Kate had spent the morning preparing for this conversation with the same attention to detail she brought to state dinners. She knew every fact about her charity gala, every donor's contribution, and every potential solution to the obstacles that had been placed in her path. More importantly, she had thought carefully about what she was willing to compromise on and what lines she absolutely would not cross. Camilla was waiting in her elegantly appointed sitting room, tea service laid out on the antique coffee table between two facing chairs. She rose as Kate entered, offering a warm smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Catherine, how lovely to see you. Please sit down. I thought we should have a proper chat about your upcoming event." Kate settled into the offered chair, accepting a cup of Earl Grey tea with steady hands. The room felt like a stage set for a diplomatic negotiation, which she supposed was exactly what this was. "I appreciate you taking the time to meet with me," Kate began, her voice calm but firm. "I know you must be very busy." "Of course, dear. Family comes first, always." Camilla stirred her tea thoughtfully. "I understand there have been some concerns raised about your gala." "Quite understandable. Really, these events require such careful coordination." Kate set down her teacup with deliberate precision. "The concerns seem to have appeared quite suddenly, considering we've been planning for months. I'm hoping we can find a way to address them without compromising the event's success." The two women regarded each other across the coffee table, each taking the measure of the other. They had maintained cordial relations for years, but this was their first direct confrontation, and both understood the stakes involved. "Security is always our primary concern," Camilla continued smoothly. "And, of course, we must ensure that all royal events maintain appropriate standards." "I'm sure you understand." "Absolutely," Kate agreed. "Which is why I'm confused about why these standards weren't raised during our initial planning discussions 6 months ago. Surely the security requirements haven't changed overnight." Camilla's smile flickered slightly. Kate was being more direct than expected, not backing down or apologizing as many might have in this situation. "Protocols evolve, Catherine. We've learned to be more cautious about large public gatherings." "I see. And would these same cautious protocols apply to your upcoming garden party next month? The one for 500 guests at Highgrove?" The question hung in the air between them. Kate had done her homework, and both women knew it. Camilla's event was actually larger and more complex than Kate's gala, yet it had sailed through all approvals without question. "That's quite different," Camilla said carefully. "The guest list for Highgrove has been established for years, whereas my guest list includes too many new faces, people who might not be sufficiently loyal to the current establishment." Kate's voice remained polite, but there was steel beneath the courtesy. Camilla set down her teacup and leaned back in her chair, studying Kate with newfound respect. The younger woman had clearly inherited more than just beauty from her famous mother-in-law. She had Diana's ability to cut straight to the heart of a matter while maintaining perfect composure. "Catherine, let me be frank with you. Your popularity is remarkable. The public adores you in ways that are quite rare in our family. That's wonderful, but it also comes with certain responsibilities, such as understanding that your influence affects the entire family's dynamic. When you succeed dramatically, others may appear to fail by comparison. When you shine very brightly, others may seem dim." Kate considered this carefully. It was the closest Camilla had come to admitting the real motivation behind her interference. "Are you suggesting I should deliberately make my events less successful? Should I care less about the charities I support?" "Not at all. I'm suggesting you might consider coordination, working more closely with established family members who have experience in these matters." Camilla's meaning was clear: accept oversight and control or face continued obstacles. "I see. And would this coordination involve your office having approval authority over my charitable work?" "It would involve collaboration, yes. Teamwork benefits everyone." Kate stood up, and walked to the window, looking out at the manicured gardens. She could feel Camilla's eyes on her, waiting for her response. This was the moment of truth: accept a subordinate role or fight for her independence. "Camilla, may I ask you something personal?" "Of course." Kate turned back to face the older woman. "Do you remember what it felt like when you were criticized for every move you made? When people questioned your right to be part of this family? When every event you hosted was compared unfavorably to someone else's?" Camilla's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. "I remember. Then you understand why I can't accept restrictions that aren't applied equally to everyone. I won't become a villain in someone else's story just to make others feel more comfortable with their own popularity levels." The two women stared at each other across the elegant room, both understanding that negotiations had just shifted into more dangerous territory. Kate had essentially accused Camilla of jealousy and unfair treatment, while making it clear she wouldn't submit quietly to control. "That's a very bold position to take," Camilla said finally. "It's the only position I can take while maintaining my integrity," Kate replied. "I didn't ask to be popular, but I won't apologize for it either. And I won't sabotage my own charitable work to manage other people's insecurities." Camilla rose from her chair, her own composure showing slight cracks. "You may find that independence comes with unexpected costs, Catherine. And you may find that trying to diminish someone else's light doesn't make your own shine brighter," Kate countered, her voice still calm, but her message unmistakable. The meeting was clearly over. Both women maintained their polite facades as Kate prepared to leave, but the underlying tension was impossible to ignore. As Kate reached the door, Camilla spoke once more. "The king returns from Scotland tomorrow. I imagine he'll be interested to hear about our discussion." Kate paused at the threshold. "I imagine he will. I plan to give him a full report myself." As Kate's car pulled away from Clarence's house, both women understood that their conflict had just escalated significantly. Camilla had expected Kate to accept her authority or at least negotiate a compromise. Instead, Kate had essentially declared her independence and challenged Camilla's right to interfere. That evening, Kate called William to report on the meeting. His reaction was immediate and fierce. "She threatened to involve father?" "She mentioned it. But, William, I don't think we can avoid that now anyway. This has gone too far for quiet family discussions." William was quiet for a long moment. "Then, we need to be prepared for a formal family meeting. Father will want to hear from everyone involved. Are you ready for that? Are you? Because once we involve father officially, there's no going back to the way things were. The family dynamics will be permanently changed." Kate thought about the children who needed the mental health services her gala would fund. She thought about the months of work that had gone into the planning. Most of all, she thought about the precedent being set, whether future Princess of Wales would have true independence or would always be subject to the whims of whoever held more senior positions. "I'm ready," she said finally. This was always about more than just one charity event. As night fell over London, both Kate and Camilla prepared for a battle that would ultimately be decided not by their own negotiating skills, but by the judgment of the king himself. The stage was set for a confrontation that would reshape the royal family's internal power structure for generations to come. The king's private study at Buckingham Palace felt unusually tense as three of the most important figures in the royal family gathered for what would become known as the most significant family meeting in recent memory. King Charles sat behind his mahogany desk, still wearing his traveling clothes from the flight back from Scotland. His expression was grave as he reviewed the reports that had been waiting for his return. William sat in one of the leather chairs facing the desk, his posture straight and formal. He had arrived 30 minutes early to brief his father privately on the situation. Camilla occupied the chair beside him, her hands folded calmly in her lap, though those who knew her well might have noticed the slight tension in her shoulders. Kate had been deliberately excluded from this initial meeting, a decision that spoke volumes about how the palace establishment viewed the conflict. She waited in another room down the hall, accompanied only by her private secretary and the weight of uncertainty about her future role in the family. "I've read all the reports," the king began, his voice carrying the weariness of a man who had dealt with family conflicts for decades. "I've spoken to security personnel, reviewed the protocols in question, and examined the timeline of events. Now I need to hear directly from both of you about how we reached this point. William leaned forward slightly. Father, this began with reasonable planning for a charitable event and escalated into what I can only describe as systematic interference designed to undermine Catherine's work. The obstacles that appeared were selective, unprecedented, and clearly targeted. Camilla's voice remained steady as she responded. Charles, I was simply ensuring that proper protocols were followed. Large public events require careful oversight, especially in today's security environment. I was protecting the family's interests. The king studied his wife and son, two people he loved who were now in direct opposition. He had hoped to avoid this kind of internal conflict, but he recognized that it had been building for months beneath the surface of family politeness. Camilla, explain to me why the same security protocols weren't applied to your upcoming garden party, which has a larger guest list and more complex logistics. The question hung in the air. Camilla had prepared for many lines of inquiry, but she hadn't expected Charles to have researched her own events so thoroughly. The circumstances are different. My event has established precedents. That's not an answer, the king replied quietly. That's an evasion. William, tell me exactly what Catherine hopes to achieve with her gala. William outlined the charitable goals, the months of preparation, and the potential impact on children's mental health services. As he spoke, it became clear that Kate's event wasn't just another royal function. It was a carefully planned initiative with genuine humanitarian objectives. And Camilla, the king continued, explain to me what family interests are served by preventing this charitable work from succeeding. The directness of the question caught Camilla off guard. She had expected to discuss protocols and procedures, not defend her fundamental motivations. It's not about preventing success. It's about maintaining proper coordination within the family structure. Coordination implies cooperation, the king observed. What I'm hearing describes control. Charles rose from his desk and walked to the window overlooking the palace gardens. He had spent his entire life navigating the delicate balance between personal desires and institutional requirements. Now he faced a situation that required him to make a decision that would affect not just this one event, but the future dynamics of his family and the monarchy itself. I'm going to speak with Catherine now, he announced. I want to hear her perspective directly before I make any decisions. 20 minutes later, Kate entered the study with the composure that had served her well throughout her royal career. She had changed into a more formal dress and carried herself with the dignity of someone who understood she was fighting for her future within the family. Catherine, sit down, please. The king's tone was paternal but serious. I want you to tell me, in your own words, what this situation is really about. Kate had rehearsed this moment in her mind, but facing her father-in-law across his desk, she found herself speaking from the heart rather than from prepared remarks. Your Majesty, this is about whether the next generation of royals will be allowed to serve the people effectively, or whether we'll be constrained by internal politics that serve no one except those who feel threatened by change. The honesty of her response clearly impressed the king. Go on. I understand the importance of protocol and coordination, but I also understand that the monarchy's future depends on our ability to connect with people, to serve causes that matter, and to show genuine leadership in addressing society's challenges. This gala represents everything I believe our family should stand for, using our platform to help those who need it most. And you believe Camilla was trying to prevent that? Kate chose her words carefully. I believe that concerns about my popularity have led to decisions that prioritize managing internal family dynamics over serving the public good. That's not sustainable, and it's not fair to the people who depend on our charitable work. The king was quiet for several minutes, processing Kate's words against everything he had heard and observed. He understood better than anyone the pressures that came with royal life, the jealousies and competitions that could tear families apart. Catherine, if I allow your gala to proceed without further interference, what assurances can you give me that you'll continue to work constructively with all family members? I can promise that I'll always be respectful and collaborative with anyone who approaches me, with genuine cooperation. But I cannot promise to submit to restrictions that aren't applied fairly to everyone. After Kate left, the king called William and Camilla back for his final decision. The atmosphere in the study was heavy with anticipation as both waited to learn how their conflict would be resolved. "I've made my decision," the king announced. "Catherine's gala will proceed as originally planned. All obstacles will be removed immediately, and full family support will be provided." Camilla's face remained neutral, but William could see the disappointment in her eyes. However, the king continued, "This situation has revealed some fundamental issues in how we coordinate family activities that need to be addressed going forward." He turned to Camilla. "My dear, I understand your concerns about family coordination, but they cannot be addressed through selective enforcement of protocols. If you have suggestions for improving our collective charitable work, I'm happy to discuss them. But interference disguised as procedure helps no one." Then he addressed William. "And, son, I expect you and Catherine to remember that being popular doesn't exempt you from working collaboratively with other family members. Success should lift everyone up, not create divisions." The king's decision was diplomatically worded, but its meaning was clear. Kate had won this battle, but everyone was expected to find a way to work together going forward. That evening, news of the resolved scheduling difficulties was quietly released to the press. The royal family presented a united front publicly, but privately, everyone understood that the power dynamics within the family had shifted permanently. Kate's gala would proceed as planned, but more importantly, she had established her independence and proven that she wouldn't be bullied or controlled by internal family politics. The precedent was set for future conflicts, and the message was clear: merit and public service would be rewarded, regardless of internal jealousies or power struggles. As she prepared for bed that night, Kate reflected on the events of the past week. She had won a significant victory, but she also understood that it came with new responsibilities and expectations. The next generation of royals would be watching how she handled her newfound independence, and the public would be judging whether her courage in this conflict translated into better service to them. The battle was over, but the war for the future of the monarchy had only just begun. 3 weeks after the confrontation in the king's study, the charity gala finally took place in the grand ballroom of Buckingham Palace. The event exceeded all expectations. 800 guests, major celebrities, and, most importantly, donations totaling over £2 million for children's mental health services. Kate moved through the evening with graceful confidence, knowing that every successful moment was a vindication of her decision to stand her ground. What made the evening particularly significant was the presence of every major royal family member, all showing united public support despite the private tensions that had preceded the event. Camilla herself appeared in elegant burgundy, smiling for photographs and engaging warmly with guests. To outside observers, the royal family looked perfectly harmonious. But those who understood palace dynamics could see the subtle changes in how family members interacted. When Camilla spoke with Kate, their conversation was polite but formal, lacking the easy warmth they had once shared. When William addressed the gathering, his remarks carefully emphasized Kate's personal dedication to the cause, a public declaration of support that everyone recognized as significant. The king's presence at the event sent the strongest message of all. Not only did he attend, but he gave an impromptu speech praising Kate's vision and dedication. The Princess of Wales has shown us tonight what can be achieved when passion meets purpose, he declared to applause that seemed to go on forever. This is the kind of leadership our family is proud to support. As the evening concluded, Kate felt a mixture of triumph and exhaustion. She had proven her point and protected her charitable work, but she also understood that relationships within the family had been permanently altered. The easy camaraderie that had once existed was replaced by something more careful, more calculated. In the weeks that followed, the ripple effects of the conflict became apparent throughout the royal establishment. Palace staff noted new protocols about inter-office communication. Charity coordinators found themselves navigating more carefully between different royal patrons. Most significantly, future event planning began to involve clearer hierarchies and more formal approval processes, not to control Kate specifically, but to prevent similar conflicts from arising. Princess Anne observed these changes with sardonic amusement. "Well, Catherine," she remarked during a private lunch, "you've certainly shaken things up. The question now is whether you can live with the consequences of being seen as the family member who challenges authority." Kate understood what it meant. Her victory had established her independence, but it had also marked her as someone willing to fight rather than submit. Future conflicts would be viewed through this lens, and family members would approach her with both greater respect and greater wariness. Camilla, for her part, adapted to the new reality with the pragmatism that had sustained her through decades of royal life. She couldn't control Kate directly, but she could work to ensure that her own position remained strong. She increased her own charitable activities, sought new ways to connect with the public, and began building stronger relationships with other family members who might serve as allies in future disagreements. The relationship between the two women settled into a pattern of professional courtesy. They appeared together at family events, coordinated their public schedules to avoid conflicts, and maintained the appearance of mutual support. But the warmth was gone, replaced by the careful politeness of former adversaries who had agreed to a ceasefire. William watched these dynamics with mixed feelings. He was proud of his wife's courage and pleased with her success, but he also worried about the long-term implications of the conflict. Palace politics had a way of escalating over time, and he feared that this victory might lead to bigger battles in the future. His concerns proved prescient when, 6 months later, another controversy arose over charitable patronages. This time, the dispute involved which family member would become patron of a major environmental organization that was choosing between Kate and Camilla. The organization's board was split, with some members preferring Kate's higher profile, while others favored Camilla's longer experience. But this time, the conflict was handled differently. Both women met privately before any problems could escalate, discussed their respective interests openly, and reached a compromise that satisfied everyone. Kate would take the primary patronage while Camilla would serve as honorary president, giving both women significant roles without forcing a competition. The compromise worked because both had learned from their previous confrontation. Kate understood that she needed to be more collaborative in her approach, while Camilla recognized that trying to control Kate would only lead to more damaging conflicts. They had found a way to coexist without either sacrificing their principles or undermining their effectiveness. A year after the original Gala conflict, Kate was preparing for her most ambitious project yet, a nationwide initiative on early childhood development. As she planned the launch event, she made sure to brief all family members in advance, seek input from senior royals, and coordinate carefully with existing charitable efforts. The difference in approach was notable, but so was the difference in response. Instead of facing obstacles and interference, Kate found herself receiving genuine support and useful advice from across the family. Even Camilla offered practical suggestions based on her own experience with large-scale charitable initiatives. The success of this collaborative approach proved that the family had learned valuable lessons from their earlier conflict. Competition had been replaced by coordination, and individual ambitions were balanced against collective family interests. During the launch event for Kate's Childhood Development Initiative, observers noted something remarkable. All the senior royals spoke from the same platform, each highlighting different aspects of the work without competing for attention or credit. Kate's vision provided the framework, but everyone contributed their own expertise and perspective. In her closing remarks that evening, Kate made a subtle reference to the journey that had brought the family to this point. Great achievements require not just individual passion, but collective wisdom. When we work together, respecting both innovation and experience, we can accomplish far more than any of us could achieve alone. The audience heard inspirational words about charitable collaboration. Those familiar with royal family dynamics heard something deeper, an acknowledgement that Kate had learned to balance her independence with family harmony, and that the monarchy was stronger when its members supported each other's strengths rather than competing over limitations. As the evening ended, Camilla approached Kate with genuine warmth for the first time since their original conflict. "That was beautifully done, Catherine. You've shown real growth in how you bring people together." Kate smiled, recognizing the olive branch being offered. "Thank you. I've had excellent teachers in this family about the importance of service over self." The exchange was brief, but it marked a genuine reconciliation based on mutual respect rather than forced politeness. Both women had evolved from their original positions, finding a way to honor their different strengths while working toward common goals. In the end, the palace power clash that had begun with a charity gala had transformed into something more valuable, a new model for how the royal family could handle internal disagreements while maintaining their public effectiveness. Kate had established her independence without destroying family relationships, while Camilla had learned to guide without controlling. The monarchy emerged stronger, not because conflict had been avoided, but because it had been navigated with wisdom and ultimately resolved with grace. Future generations of royals would inherit not just titles and duties, but a proven framework for balancing individual initiative with collective responsibility. Years later, when historians examined this period in royal history, they would mark the charity gala conflict as a turning point, the moment when the modern royal family learned to embrace both tradition and innovation, creating space for strong personalities to flourish while maintaining the unity that made their service to the nation effective. Kate's gala had raised money for children's mental health. More importantly, it had raised the standard for how royal family members could work together while honoring their individual strengths and ambitions. The true victory belonged not to any one person, but to the institution itself, which had proven its ability to evolve and adapt while remaining true to its core mission of service to the people.